Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. You'll get 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Plus, enjoy access to the American Express Global Lounge Collection. And with the welcome offer of 150,000 points, your business can soar to all new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum. Built for business by American Express.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/SBO. Terms and conditions apply.
I think I obviously went full into Robocop. Had all the games, had all the
There was a great Game Boy game of Robocop.
There was a great Game Boy game.
Yeah.
Had the Amiga, had the Spectrum games.
Wow.
Just
You were a fanboy.
Well, it was great. You walked around shooting people.
Well, if a 9-year-old saw this, they'd be all over it.
Hi, I'm Cathy, and I'm here with my husband Dave.
Hi, that's me.
And you're listening to Flixwatcher, the podcast where we review movies on Netflix. And today we are hosting a very special episode because it is the 100th celebration of Flixwatcher. And we've got Kobi and Helen here. Hello.
Hello. You're right.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Thanks for coming back.
Today we are doing Kobi's selection,
Yeah.
which is, do you want a drum roll reveal it?
That's why I never made a drummer, because that was a horrific drum roll.
It's terrible.
I tried once. Every time I see a drum kit, I try. My choice is Robocop.
Excellent.
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
well, we'll be...
Helen's looking quite stern.
Helen's not happy.
Maybe not yes.
So have you been waiting 100 episodes to see Robocop?
I think I've been waiting all my life since I was like 8 again to watch Robocop again.
So why did you pick it?
I picked Robocop because, when you're a kid and there's a film that you just hear about and you just really, really want to watch it. And for me, that was Robocop because it came out in 1987 and I think I saw it when I was like 9, which is when you shouldn't watch this film. But how could you not want to watch this when you're 9 years old? Because it's a robot cop shooting people and you're in the 80s. And this was just like, for me, I was like a kid. I was like pulling my mum's trousers and skirt and like trying to say, can we rent Robocop? Can we rent Robocop? Can we rent Robocop? And they're like, no. You're insane. But one day then they relented. And literally I was like, here's a film, go and watch it. And it was like the best day of my life.
Oh.
And I should not have watched it at 9 years old, but it's great, and it's great to see it on Netflix again. I'm not sure if I've seen it again since. I must have seen it at least once since, but it's good to see it on Netflix. And when we do the show with Flixwatcher, we don't actually get that many people who pick films from their childhood or something that they've seen that haven't revisited for a while. So I really wanted to pick something I hadn't seen for a long time to see how it compared to modern eyes. So it'll be quite interesting to see how this goes in the scoring system here.
Right, so Kobi, what is your synopsis of this movie? No pressure, but you've waited 100 episodes to do this.
Wait, we forgot to say there will be spoilers. We're so bad at hosting this show. Spoilers for Robocop.
Robocop. It's okay. We're set in Detroit in the near future, which I guess because this is set in 1987, could it be set nowish?
Possibly.
In real time?
They don't give a date,
Yeah,
do
they don't say,
They're
do
very
they?
ambiguous about that.
So we'll assume this is what's happening right now in Detroit.
Yeah.
They predicted this. There's an evil corporation, OCP, who want to take over the management of enforcement in Detroit, and they've set up the system, enforcement droid Enforcement Droid Ed 209, to protect and serve the community in Detroit. Although that doesn't work because then Ed 209 malfunctions and kills someone in the boardroom. And then a wily executive of OCP says, hey, I've got a better idea. We're going to wait until a cop dies, and then we're going to implant a cop into a robot and make Robocop. And that's what he does. Waits till a cop dies. And then a cop dies. Murphy dies in quite an horrific shootout, and then gets implanted into a robot and becomes Robocop. And Robocop saves the day many times over, and that's the story of his life.
You make it sound a bit more joyous than it actually is.
It's very joyous.
It's not joyous.
I can't wait to hear Helen's review. Kobi, let's start with you though. This was your pick. You've kind of covered why you picked it.
Yeah.
Does it hold up then? If you know, to 9-year-old, if you were looking at 9-year-old Kobi now,
get 9-year-old Kobi in a time machine.
Yeah. What would you say to him?
What would you say to him?
Would you say to him that movie that you loved is stupid now?
Initially when I saw this and thought I need to pick a film, I saw Robocop and thought I think I'm going to pick Robocop, and then I thought, like, for a beat later, thought I bet it looks shit now, and but then I kind of wrangled my way into it and thought, no, that's what we need to do. I need to see if it still looks shit. And surprisingly, I think it really does hold up in all the kind of manners. Special effects don't age that well. Ed 209's the biggest kind of special effects. It's stop motion, so it doesn't actually look that bad. If it was like really bad CGI, I think it would have looked a lot worse than what it does do. The story still matters. The gore and stuff is still kind of like, which still surprises me that my parents actually let me watch this.
They didn't know.
There's some horrific scenes.
Horrific?
Yeah.
It's very violent.
Right from the start. So I generally do think it holds up, and I think that's what's testament to making a film properly. If you look at like Jurassic Park or even like old Ray Harryhausen stuff, if you make a film properly, then it will hold up years down the line, compared to when... I'm sure they don't think this when they're doing this, but some films just come out almost like on a mill, and just think that doesn't even look good now, or doesn't make any sense now. So I think it does hold up in many kind of different facets of it.
Yeah, and I mean, well, to that point, I think computer graphics improve at such a rate that things date very fast. Whereas something like the stop motion of Ed 209 and the makeup effects in this movie are just incredible.
So Rob Bottin.
Rob Bottin, there you go. I assumed Stan Winston actually, but then I googled it and his name was nowhere, which is actually quite surprising. But it almost feels like Stan Winston's fingerprints are over this because of, I guess, his influence on the industry of special effects.
Are these body horror people? Are they?
Yeah, he did American Werewolf, didn't he?
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
Rob Bottin,
still one of the best. That's the pinnacle of werewolf transformation.
I mean, he was the kind of the ultimate in body horror in the 80s. So, yeah, to have him work on your film is, pretty amazing.
Because the bit that stands out to me the most is when Murphy takes off the helmet and the sort of seamless way his skin connects with the helmet.
Sure.
And the back of his head looks like there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And there's no effects there. That's just like Peter
Weir.
Peter Weir in... No, what's his name?
Weller.
Yeah, Peter
sorry.
Weller in a suit, but with just brilliant makeup effects around him. Like, it's top notch work. But I've totally derailed. Sorry, yeah.
It was. I did really enjoy watching again. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed watching again. After, I'm sure it's at least 20 years since I watched Robocop. So
You're satisfied.
Quite made up. Yeah.
Helen.
Your first time watching,
Not so
isn't
happy.
it?
Yeah,
Is it your first time?
So yeah, this is my first time watching Robocop, which is kind of bizarre because I've seen quite a lot of Paul Verhoeven's films anyway, and
You're a child of the 80s too?
yeah, and also I've seen Total Recall quite a lot, and those two came out a very similar time. And the two sort of memories I have from Robocop and Terminator 2 is that my dad used to get Fangoria magazine, which would feature all of the special effects, and these covers used to come through the door and land on the letterbox. And the one that I remember was the Total Recall with the eyes popping out, and also from Robocop is towards the end of the film when Paul McCrane is covered in the toxic goop, and he's like his face is melted off, and so I knew that scene was happening at some point in Robocop, but I didn't know when it was or what point in the story, but that was what I knew from it. And somehow I just never watched it, which is really weird that I hadn't, because it would totally have been a film that I would have enjoyed and got a lot out of. So I quite enjoyed watching it.
Okay.
It is a little bit daft in some bits, but I mean, the themes are still the same. And yeah, like you said, because it's me watching it now was a lot like watching the Harryhausen stock animations that we watched when we were kids, which were obviously made a bit earlier. So it's that kind of feeling. So I think it's aged reasonably well. Thanks for picking it.
Yeah, it was
Cathy.
a good choice because I mean I love sci-fi and I love 80s sci-fi and I love like Total Recall and Terminator. So for me, I really enjoy RoboCop. And I had actually quite recently watched the remake, the Joel Kinnaman one, which I, to my shame, also enjoyed. So I'm just a candidate for this movie. And
It's not necessarily to your shame. It's never.
yeah. You know, you know, like you saying about some of the themes still being really relevant around like big corporations and like, you know, the humanity stuff when, you know, he's trying to figure out who he is, and there's loads of interesting themes in this movie. Like, it's a good sci-fi. It's clever sci-fi. Obviously, it's very violent. I wouldn't show it to a 9-year-old. 10-year-old, fine.
It's really violent.
Yeah, it's really gory.
How old are
And
you
movies
guys?
aren't that gory anymore. Like these sorts of movies, because they're trying to target family audiences. You know.
Well, the remake was PG-13, right?
Yeah,
remake was not
might
this
have been
gory.
12. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I honestly I'm a big fan of it. So I was really happy to rewatch.
What do you think? How old are you, Dave, when you first saw it?
When I first saw it,
Yeah.
Teenager.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
more reasonable kind of age.
Yeah, I felt like I
I
wasn't.
can't believe your parents let you watch it.
Yeah,
But, like,
nine's
I
very
can't
young.
believe.
saying that, I watched films equally like this when I was that age anyway.
Yeah,
it was
but
just happened, didn't it? You know, if you got
in
it on
the 80s,
VHS,
it's kind of fine,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was fine.
It's kind of like, because I used to babysit my brothers over the summer, and one of the big reasons I love movies so much is that we just used to go to, well, it wasn't Blockbuster then, it was like a local video store, and we used to get like loads of films out, and then that was what we used to watch every day, and it's like the best.
You were like a really fun babysitter.
Yeah, it was
Love that.
brilliant.
Movies all day.
And then I think she just relented one day as parents.
You wore her
yeah,
down.
just wore her down. It's
Fine.
like, have that.
Well, like as a kid, I used to read books I shouldn't have been reading, you know. But like parents don't necessarily know what it is
yeah.
you're reading or
the
watching.
things I would watch these with my, well, at
I
least with my
definitely wouldn't
dad.
watch these.
I mean, I definitely remember having that same experience of being in the video store and that sort of like the attraction of the top shelf. And back then, like, you didn't know what these movies were. All you had was a title and a cover art.
Well, it's like Robocop. It's like that. I know what
get
that
it,
is. I
yeah.
need that. And then Terminator. Fine. Can I watch that, please?
Yeah, it's funny what you described in
Predator.
Robocop. I had
Yeah.
with Terminator 2, which was with the early 90s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was in primary school, there was like everyone was obsessed with Terminator 2 and quoting it. And I was just dying to watch it and I wasn't allowed. And I remember just like kind of pretending I'd watched it in school because I wanted to be in on what everyone was saying. But I mean,
God.
to me as a kid, Robocop and Terminator were interchangeable. Like visually, you know, seeing the posters,
Yeah.
you know, they look the same.
Well, there was actually it was either a comic book or a video game where they actually featured together.
That sounds awesome.
Robocop and Terminator. No, it wasn't awesome. That was shit.
That was another thing. I obviously went full into Robocop. Had all the games. Had all the
There was a great Game Boy game of Robocop.
There was a great Game Boy game.
Yeah,
I had the Amiga. Had the Spectrum games.
Wow.
Of it. Yeah, just
You were a fanboy.
Well, it's great. You walked around shooting people.
Well, if a 9-year-old saw this, they'd be all over it.
And to be honest, it's not perhaps that much different from the A-Team when you're walking around shooting people. Though there's not arms coming off.
You're not shooting them in the dick. Which is literally what happens in this movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I thought I loved watching this again. I watched it last night. I had such a blast. I was by myself, got a few beers. That's exactly the kind of movie that I love. I love just schlocky, stupid, effects-driven stuff. The writing's kind of bad. It doesn't really hold up. I thought the dialogue wasn't great.
You're really selling it.
No, but that's part of the charm, I thought.
It's kind of the bits where he's at every single crime like within 5 seconds and like stopping everything. He's like,
yeah.
Are you Superman, Robocop, or what's going on?
It feels like
Murphy.
it's very much like the crime stuff is very much Ronald Reagan's 80s America. Where
It's very
everything is
Demolition
like
Man as well.
drugs.
There's a lot of movies around that time that this evokes.
Exactly. Whereas and like the Warriors and all this sort of gang panic. Like there was a real headline grabbing stuff like gangs are going to murder your children. And so it's like classic sort of like crimes are ridden with like just like punks on street corners with mohawks.
I was like, who's it? What is this gang?
Yeah.
This gang is stupid.
But I love that, right? So I just mentioned Demolition Man, but what was the other Sylvester Stallone movie? Was it
Cobra.
Cobra with all the gangs and the 80s stuff?
Yeah,
I've not
crime
seen
is a
that.
disease.
Yeah.
He's the cure.
Yeah, but like I love like in the 80s movies, like punks were like the villains, but like they're so unscary now. When you look at them, they look like they're like in costume.
That's what I mean. These movies were being cyberpunks are cool. These movies were being pumped out by a very conservative sort of America in the 80s, and that was seen as scary. And
but this is how it can be.
We can make
let's stop
cops
drugs
into robots.
Yeah, no, it's like if we don't stop drugs, if we don't stop gangs, this is what will happen.
This is what you get
to your children.
We're going to have to make a Robocop just to stop the drug dealers.
They'll get covered in acid.
I love it. Like, we need to wait for a cop to die. Then we'll just put this in his body. It's completely fine and everyone's on board with it.
And they take his other arm. He had a good arm.
Yeah,
and they wanted to take the
That's
other
quite
one.
harrowing.
I still remember that watching the first time thinking, they didn't need to take it down. Take it off.
The science makes no sense. Can we all say that now?
They feed him baby food to keep him alive.
You don't really get a lot of science. They
No,
don't really
it's just like-
It's not what they did is impossible. Like
Well, why not? No, you just have to. But you just have to buy it. But they don't even spend time explaining it.
No,
they're just like. They're just like, yeah, he's got a visor on. And
let's take his face, and I don't know how much of his brain they use.
Well, yeah, because he was
dead.
He was dead.
Like, he was actually dead. Like there's nothing in there.
No, but obviously he has his memories that come back.
Yeah.
About where his kids lived and who shot him and stuff like that. So there's still that kind of theme of like
memories
and stuff. So he has the brain, so at least they can trigger stuff and I think to make his arms move.
I mean, it's a bit of a zombie movie, really, isn't it?
So it's like I guess it's like if a zombie suddenly like became self-aware.
Yeah.
And was a robot and a cop.
Yeah.
Zombie Robocop.
That's exactly. Let's write that down.
I bet someone's already made that. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I like how he defeats Ed 209 in the first instance.
With the stairs.
Yeah.
That's his only weakness. He's going up and down stairs. Such a brilliant design flaw. Like, how are they planning on getting him out of the building?
Yeah, exactly.
Just in the lift.
Yeah,
imagine getting the lift with Ed 209.
Put down your weapon. I'm just going down one floor.
But when he shoots the guy in the boardroom.
It's horrifying.
Actually, who was I kidding? It's a Paul Verhoeven film. Of course, it was going to be absolutely gory and relenting.
Gory or sexy.
Yeah.
There's two moments.
No in between.
I wish it had been both.
Sometimes you get both. Well, you do in
Starship Troopers,
yeah. So you get both in that. But yeah, I mean, that is pretty
the thing
full on.
When I was 9, that was like the best thing ever. But the thing that shocked me the most when I was 9 was the toxic waste guy and then getting hit by the car. That was like, okay, maybe this is a bit too far, Mum. This is an 18
stuff.
This is an 18, Mum. I shouldn't be watching this. I need to be twice my age.
I love how much your mom's been called out in this episode. Like, she was a terrible mother.
I think though this movie really holds up. I'm with you, Kobi. I think it's really entertaining, and this is what I like about Paul Verhoeven movies, in that they kind of work on two levels. It's great satire. It's really good satire. But it also is just a schlocky, silly, fun movie. And he manages to, doesn't feel like, often satire can feel like it's slightly above the thing that it, or it's just like mimicking it or taking the piss out of it to make a point. Whereas Paul Verhoeven's very happy to live in the sexy, schlocky world while also trying to say something about society. But actually, you said at the very beginning about the date, this is today's America. This is bloody feels like we're going towards. It's about privatization of public services.
Yeah, gentrification.
The AI in everyday life.
Yeah, I think this feels surprisingly like prescient for today. It's basically it's like the privatization of Southwestern Rail and the railways in London. You see what happens. The services get really bad. Robo trains shouldn't happen. I
don't know. Just looking at the pictures now, it just makes me laugh and smile at this. I'm trying to think back to when I was 9 years old, putting the tape into the machine and pressing it down and chunking down the play button.
It's such an iconic design, isn't it? Like, can we talk about his actual, like, the design of Robocop? I think it's brilliant.
Watching it for the first time now, there are clearly areas that if the bullet went in, he would not be.
Yeah, like the whole
as
lower part of his
protected?
face.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
why leave the bottom
Like
half
here,
of his face free?
and the whole like middle bit. Surely that's where the.
The torso bit.
So I mean,
no, he's
chest bit,
bulletproof there.
The
is
stomach
it
bit, sorry.
what here?
Yeah, he's all bulletproof there.
It's just
The
Even
only
though-
bit that isn't bulletproof is his
his-
mouth.
His
But like,
mouth.
why is his mouth left open? Because he's dead. He doesn't need to breathe.
No, but he needs to talk. He needs to say things like "dead or alive, you're coming with me."
Yeah.
And the other things he says, I can't remember what he said. I wish I'd written.
Well,
them down.
he's got his primary directives: uphold the law.
Yep.
I can't remember what the other ones are. Protect the
That's
peace.
it.
Protect the peace, and
Yeah.
and then Directive 4: don't arrest senior
Yeah.
OCP members.
Yeah.
But the best thing is, I don't know, because we all watch it on Netflix. We weren't looking at a movie poster, but when you look at Google and see the poster, the tagline is "Part man, part machine, all cop." so ridiculous.
So 80s. God, I love the 80s. But there was only one. I don't think the writing in this particularly held up, but that was fine. But there was one line that got to me. I thought was actually quite nice. It was when Murphy's talking to his partner Lewis, and he's talking about his family, and he says, "I can feel them, but I can't remember them," which I thought was like a lovely way to describe this sort of. And he goes through a very horrible experience of like revisiting his old house.
I mean, it's
and getting
horrific what they
flashed
did
with
to
these
him.
memories.
Like,
Yeah.
Oh, it's really
so
awful.
yeah, it's so inhumane.
And when I remember watching this the first couple of times as, like I say, a pre-teen, pre-double digits, and I didn't really understand what was going on with the family bit. So now, actually, that's quite nice watching it again, understanding why he's going back there and like he's getting all these memories. I was just like, why aren't you shooting people?
Yeah. Go back and blow someone's brains out, please.
Why aren't things exploding? Like, go back to the petrol station.
You're like,
Find-
Robocop, there's dicks out there
Yeah,
that aren't being shot.
And that's another thing. I didn't understand what he was really. I just thought he was saving that woman. I didn't understand that she was about to. I didn't understand the concept of getting like potentially raped in an alleyway and stuff like that. So it's for these reasons as well as the gore that you should be older.
Yeah,
when
for
you,
sure.
When you watch these films, but I'm sure. I don't know. What kind of films did you watch when you were too young? Can you remember anything, guys? When you?
Oh, I watched loads of stuff I shouldn't have been watching. I can't think of any now. And particularly also like you, when I was babysitting my little sister,
Yeah.
I was like left home alone and I just went wild with whatever I could get my hands on. But also books, like reading books, I really shouldn't have been reading. Particularly when I was in my dad's house, because my parents were divorced, and my dad just would not have been supervising my reading material, where my mother may have paid more attention to it. So yeah, there's always, and it was so much more fun to watch stuff that you knew you shouldn't be watching.
Yeah.
And I had a really bad experience with my little sister where because I'm presuming you showed this to your brothers, right? When you were babysitting
Yeah. So
them.
they were younger than me.
Yeah, and I remember
God,
watching
traumatized.
what's the original what's the original?
Night
Is
of the
it
Living
Night
Dead.
of the Living Dead.
Oh.
And like I watched it when I was like
Yeah.
10, 11, and I was like, it's not scary. So then my little sister, we had it on tape. And I said, oh, she can watch that. It's not scary. And my mum went, okay, just listen to me. And then my poor little sister Jackie had nightmares for weeks after it. Whereas to me already, it had just been, I was old enough that I was like, it's just
Just
shuffling.
jaded.
It wasn't scary, but yeah, I was jaded. But no, my sister, I completely traumatized my sister. And I'm imagining we should go back to your siblings because they were probably traumatized by this as young children on their summer holidays.
I should say, by the way, I was a proper scaredy cat with films when I was a kid. So that's probably one of the reasons I don't like horror. But for me, I can't watch. What's that rabbit film? Watership Down. The Watership Down films
Yeah, well, no one can
terrify
watch
me.
that.
Sad, yeah, and awful.
And even like Never Ending Story used to terrify me, but this didn't terrify
Never-ending
me.
Story?
Yeah, because there's that bit with the dog chasing him in the dark goopy pit thing.
Oh, yeah.
That scared the shit out of me.
Maybe even as a
this-
kid, you knew this was completely farcical.
Yeah, I think that must be it.
Yeah. I mean, it would have looked like a video game almost to
Yeah,
you as a
well,
kid.
that's it. I was like,
yeah.
Oh, the music is so good, isn't it?
That theme.
It's so good.
What do you guys watch that was perhaps? Oh, you said you watched Total Recall.
Yeah, so Total Recall. I mean, Beverly Hills Cops are not for kids. Lethal Weapon, Aliens.
That's the biggest of those that you said is not for kids. That
That's
I mean,
really scary.
really for language more, I guess.
Yeah. But did you understand that you don't?
The Fly.
I think when you're a kid, you just absorb the swear words, but you don't really kind of take them in as like you shouldn't. These are really bad. And when I went to watch The Favourite at the cinema, and every time she said the C word, which is quite a lot in a 15 film, there's a lady 2 or 3 seats away from me going, oh. But they didn't even register. That just doesn't even register in my brain as like, you shouldn't say that, especially if it's coming from a cinema screen.
Yeah.
But some people really do take against that, and I wouldn't show my kids Beverly Hills Cop.
I think
because
it's a generational thing as well with swear words.
Yeah.
as well, isn't it? I think
I don't know, I just would watch pretty much anything.
Well, that's what I mean now, but at 9 years old.
Yeah.
Okay.
9 years old, everything.
There didn't really seem to be...
Well, if your dad was getting Fangoria, he was probably
this was
clearly
it.
comfortable with it.
Yeah. I mean, you'd answer the phone and it'd be there with like the bulging eyes and it'd be like, hello?
I remember when, I think the parents are perhaps more scared of showing sex and nudity on the screen. Well, my parents were at least. So when I remember watching Predator one, I went to visit relatives or friends in London.
Oh, that sex scene in Predator is so beautiful.
No, so we watched Predator one day, and I was like, "Well, you got Terminator here, so can we watch Terminator? It's got Arnold Schwarzenegger again." And they were like, "No, you can't watch that." I was like, "It's an 18. Predator's an 18." And then I was like, they kind of relented, but when it got to the sex scene in Terminator, they sped past it.
But actually, that's crucial to the plot.
Well, I didn't understand what was going on. They kind of look over there, and then I was like, when I watched it again, like 5 years later, I was like, "Oh, okay, dude."
You get the whole story now.
Yeah. Exactly. But and it was just like the shooting, and
this is why sex education is important, or else you'll never know why Terminator 2 exists.
It is interesting though that our parents and society in general is more comfortable with violence than sex. Right?
Well, you know, it's interesting because when we lived in Australia and I worked in TV over there, I did like classification training, and they were talking through how it works in different countries. Yeah, and in Australia they're really, really easygoing on swear words. So in Australia at PG you can have shit. And they were saying that like every country's got like different standards. So Australia's really lenient on
because in Australia you can have swear words on radio.
Oh yeah, it's like so lenient. Like shit is not considered a swear word there, and it was really interesting. They're talking about kind of the different standards in different countries, and like they were talking about in America, and they were saying like how America is really prudish on language and really prudish on sex, but like violence, like forget about it. You know, even like as an example of like JFK being shot and like how much that's been televised, and like you're talking about a real person's brains being blown out, but just in general how weirdly stringent they are on language.
Well, if you watch
sex and like they like violence is incredible. And then in France we watch examples of like really explicit sexual things that would like barely have been a 15s in France, but like would have been a hard 18s in Australia or like an R rating. So it's really interesting as we talk through like different cultural stuff. But like in America it's like, and well, and in like it's clearly in the culture. Like there's guns in the culture. People walk around carrying guns. People shoot each other every day. Like it is part of their culture. Whereas in England, a gun is a truly shocking thing, and I think that's very obvious in films like this. Like there's so much gun violence in it, and like we'd laugh about the tagline, "Oh, he's 100% cop," but it's like to them it's like natural that a cop would have a gun and be that violent.
This movie celebrates gun violence.
Oh yeah,
totally.
I remember that. I loved it when they got the big gun out and were blowing up cars.
Yeah,
and we're so desensitized to this stuff. But like, imagine in real life actually seeing someone brandishing a gun, which I've never seen, but in this, it's like completely normal that someone's walking around with it at all times. It's so weird. And so, does anyone have any more thoughts on Robocop, or will we skip straight to the patented Flixwatcher scoring system?
I would like to mention the media stuff very briefly, because that's kind of an interesting thread that runs throughout that really doesn't have a lot to do with the movie. It's
you mean the guy going, I'd buy that for $1, or do you mean...
Oh no, the actual news. But actually that guy... No, but that's another bit of satire as well, which is kind of, he's just trying to say that in this dystopian future, like it's this just like horribly reduced sitcom, which is just like old man and young women and then the same punchline over and over again. But the characters are deliberately like finding it to be the funniest thing they've ever seen, like in every situation. So I think that's Paul Verhoeven sort of just like going balls deep on this like dystopia, and then the media is just like filled with the news has ads in it, and I think there's a lot of that. He does the same in Starship Troopers with the sort of
he goes, doubles down
propaganda
on Starship
machine
Troopers, doesn't he?
Yeah, very much so. So I always like when you get those elements with a Paul Verhoeven movie, and there's always a black humor to all of it as well. But at the same time, I've worked in the media and TV news, and it's like so funny when you watch TV news in movies, and it's just like total like have you ever even watched the news? Like this is not how the news works.
It doesn't look like the news now. It's quite.
There's no stories. There's just headlines, and then they move on. And then there's the reporter who goes up to interview people on the street. But he just walks up to someone, doesn't even ask him a question, and he turns around. I think it's a disgrace. It's like there's little moments in this that just through me. But anyway, I'm getting really nitpicky. Sorry, actually, one other thing that really bothered me. The very end of this movie, when the head of OCP, the bad guy's been thrown out the window, Dick, he's been thrown out the window, and then he turns to Murphy and says, "Good shooting, son. What's your name?" As if he's just this guy, the cop that he doesn't know. He's a fucking head of a company who signed off on this project.
Oh, right. So who are you talking about? Because Dick was the guy that got killed.
No,
at the
sorry,
end.
not Dick. The head of the company, the boss.
Oh, yeah, the
head
old,
of OCP,
old guy.
Proper old guy.
Yeah.
So Robocop shoots Dick. He goes out the window in a terrible stop motion thing. Why did they do stop motion on that?
Yeah, that's odd. Because
really bad death.
When did Die Hard? Was Die Hard after this? Where they just went?
Yeah, it was the year after. Yeah, just have a guy falling on a trampoline. Like, come on. It looked so bad because it's such a shame because the rest of the effects work was so good. But then he says to Robocop, like, "What's your name?" To which he says Murphy, and that's the last line of the movie. And it's like, yeah, great. But hang on, it's like, wait, no. You're the head of this company. All the media has been talking about is Robocop. There's only one Robocop. He's right there. Also,
have you not seen?
You signed off on this project. It's your company's most famous product. And then you're like, hey, great shooting. Who are you again?
I think it's best not to think too hard about this film.
I have spent so much time thinking about this movie, far too much.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
All right. As you know on Flixwatcher, we have a patented scoring system, which covers recommendability, repeat viewing, small screen score, engagement, and then that gives us an overall score that we combine across the four of us. So we're going to start with recommendability. We'll start with you, Kobi, because it was your choice. What are you going to give?
I'm going to go. I'm going to give 4.5.
Nice.
That 0.5 is for people who are legally not allowed to watch this film.
That's for all the 9-year-olds.
For myself in the past.
So would you not recommend this to your 9-year-old self?
I wouldn't, because it's not appropriate. It's not age appropriate in any shape or form. But I'm also very glad I did watch them because it didn't give me nightmares. I was just like, wow, this is like the best film ever. Pow, pow, pow. But then it's like, well, you couldn't escape then, because if a film came out, then there's the game, and you're playing the game and you're still shooting people. It just wasn't like as gory, so it's still the same story. Yeah, but 4.5 because don't show it to young kids.
All right, Helen, how many young kids have you shown this to?
I haven't shown it to any. I feel as though had I have seen it when I was 9, that I would probably have a bit more love for it. So you should have recommended it to 9-year-old me. It should have been
known that Flixwatcher was coming along. That
could have been in the repertoire of my teen, well, not even teen, pre double digit viewing. So I'm going to give it a 4. I think the themes still hold up. I mean, don't watch this expecting it to be amazing, because it's kind of it does show its age a little bit, but it's still I did enjoy it.
There's things that this films just carry, the kind of momentum carries it through.
I could kind of forgive a lot of things for it, including the slightly cheesy ending where some stuff lands on him, which I find a bit funny.
Oh, when he's in that kind of pond, when it's to pull himself out of the.
Yeah, that was. I find some bits quite amusing, but no, 4.
All right, I'm going to give this a 5 because I think everyone of all ages should see Robocop at some stage in their lives. But I I find it hard. It's one of those movies that I find it hard to separate my, early memories of seeing this as a teenager with. And it's one of those ones that I just as soon as you said Robocop, I just went, yes! I was like, I couldn't wait to watch Robocop. And I think for like teenagers, it's bang on. It's so much fun. Love it. Absolutely recommend.
Well, unlike you two, I also didn't see it as a child. I saw it in my 20s. I had seen it before, possibly when we were in university. So I like it, but like for me, it's no Total Recall and it's no Terminator. It's kind of the movies I would put it next
So are those ones you saw when you were younger?
No, it's all,
really?
all of my 20s.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I gotta say, if you're on that point,
Like,
it's not as good as Total
That's what I'm
Recall.
saying. If I was going to
Or
recommend a
Terminator.
movie of this ilk, this wouldn't be it.
Yep.
Albeit, I think it's an enjoyable movie and it does hold up. So I would give it a 3 out of 5.
I think it's quite interesting that. It's quite interesting.
Kobe's lost the Excel. Oh, it's
I've
back.
lost its back. Because we had Midnight Run on the Flixwatcher, which I hadn't seen, even though it seems like an 80s kind of staple, but I hadn't seen it until like 39, 38. And for me, it didn't make sense, but I know if I'd seen it when it first came out, I would have loved that film. And it's one of your favourites.
Yeah,
Helen.
it's I've recommended.
Yeah, and also
highly.
like I watched The Thing recently for the first time as well, and I thought that was largely nonsense.
What?
It all depends what age. Like, I'm convinced with Star Wars, which I didn't watch till I was in university, that if you watch Star Wars for the first time as an adult, you don't really think
Oh, it's
very much
ridiculous.
of it. Yeah. It's
It's
just
just-
not like, whereas if you watch it for the first time as a kid, you know, it's tied up in, you know, a million different memories for you.
Yeah. I agree. There's a lot to be said for it consuming culture, pop culture in your formative years, because it's like just becomes a part of your identity in a way,
Yeah.
and then it's impossible.
Dave, I really hope Robocop didn't become a part of your identity.
No, yeah, I identify myself.
Didn't he say, "Come with me if you want to live" on your first date? Or, wasn't that how you asked you out?
You have 20 seconds to comply.
But yeah, no, for sure. This, I think, I mean, it's a good movie, but I think you two hold a softer spot for it because of when you watched it.
I concur with that.
And next we have repeat viewing. Kobe.
I'm going to go for a 3. Now I know it's on Netflix. It's the kind of thing I definitely would like to watch again.
We'll watch it again tomorrow.
Not tomorrow, not that frequently, but it's good to know that it's in the realm now. And I think perhaps one of the main reasons I haven't seen it since I was a kid is because I didn't buy it on DVD, I didn't buy it on Blu-ray, and it perhaps just wasn't at the forefront of my mind to get it. But now it's on accessible, I would, probably put it on again.
Helen?
I go straight down the middle, 2.5. I think it's no Total Recall, which I would watch tomorrow
Same.
if it was on, just because I have that.
See, I need to watch
More.
that again because I think I watched it at that kind of 13-ish age.
Yeah,
So good.
It's really good, and
Oh, I said the Colin one.
so I have seen that one as well, which is just terrible. It's really
Well, it's
not
like the
good.
remake of Robocop with Joel Kinnaman, which I said I kind of enjoyed, but it's like it's so pointless, and so was the Total Recall
Yeah.
remake. Like they just add nothing to these movies.
But they're both missing that Paul Verhoeven magic.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but
at
it's
least
like
Total
They- I
Recall
think
don't
it's
try
like-
to do some different stuff. The remake of this was essentially just a direct
Total
remake.
Recall benefits from having Philip K. Dick source material, to be fair. Like Robocop
What's his
is
own-
like there's nothing much more to it. It's just like, yeah, he's a robot cop. But like Total Recall's got some really interesting ideas as a
Yeah.
basis to it, and then you add all this like schlocky, silly, fun stuff on top. But yeah, I agree, it's a better movie.
I think the problem with Total Recall, the remake, is that it just took itself so serious.
Yeah.
And everyone was just playing it so straight, where this is completely different. And another thing it did make me really, really, really want to watch again was the Judge Dredd, quite recent. The
Dread.
Dredd. Which
Oh, the
is
Carl
Carl
Urban one.
Urban.
That's
Yeah.
a great movie.
So basically, this movie just made you want to watch other movies.
a little bit.
I think the writers actually based a lot of it on Judge Dredd. They were big fans. Based kind of how he looked and everything on.
You
That's
can kind
perhaps why I
of
had
feel
the
that
mouth.
influence, can't you?
Yeah.
A little bit, and that the kind of I am the law kind of thing.
Yeah,
Of the law, not that version.
uphold the law. Yeah.
But yeah, put that on Netflix, please.
Not the Sylvester Stallone one,
No.
Oh, I would rewatch Demolition Man 100 times.
Oh,
over.
yeah.
That, in fact,
I'm surprised that's not been on Netflix.
when you're talking about movies that we've rewatched loads, Demolition Man for me is absolutely that movie. I've seen it 1,000 times.
It's so good.
So good.
I was re-listening to earlier Flixwatchers, and you mentioned Demolition Man quite a lot as something that you'd think if you recommended it to people now, they'd be like,
they'd probably play
"Dude,
it a bit weird.
what's wrong with you? Why are you telling?"
It's so good.
But if you watch it as a kid, you'd be like, and you said to Demolition Man, someone,
Actually,
they'd be
yeah,
like,
I watched that as a kid.
Yes.
Yeah, it's probably why I love it so much. I'd give this Probably a 2 for repeat viewing.
Dave, your repeat viewing score, you're missing yours.
I would give it a 5 because I would watch it right now. Why don't we watch it?
It's good for us play. It's because the TV's not on yet. That's why we're not watching it.
Short
All right.
and sweet. And now we're on to small screen score.
This would be good in the Prince Charles, I think, with other people who loved it as a kid or younger in the 80s, I should say. But I think it still really worked well on the small screen. So I'm going to go 4.2. I think.
Nice. Helen?
I'm going to give this a 5. I mean, I never would have seen this at the cinema anyway, because there would be no way that legally I would be allowed.
Unless you were like Vincent Adultman from BoJack Horseman, where you're on the kid's shoulders.
I love that.
in a trench coat.
So if I'd have seen it, I would have only seen it on a TV screen. And it's kind of, watching it on a TV screen sort of has that, got it on VHS from the video shop round the corner. Shouldn't really be watching it. And also, I like that Netflix don't just have new films on. They do have all like these old films every now and again that pop up, and you're like, I've not seen that in ages. Let's see if it's any good or not.
Yeah.
I think this is better with a crowd, for sure, but you don't have to be in a cinema. And it's not a cinematic movie. It's quite an ugly looking movie, really, actually. It's not particularly...
Quite brutalist, in a way.
But also
Dark.
it's just like...
There's
it's not very
consideration
pretty.
for the set design. Saying that it's set in the future, there isn't really much attention paid to making it look particularly futuristic.
But do you think that's one of the reasons it still holds up? Because
Possibly.
If they had flying cars, whatever they thought was going to happen in 2020, then...
They spent all their budget on Ed 209. And
It is low, but I don't know what the budget was, but you can tell they had very little money and it all went into effects.
With the set design and stuff and everything, I thought, why are the
because they've only got like 3 sets. They've got the
boardroom
boardroom
and the toilets. The toilets look very
in
elaborate.
that building. And then they've got the steel mill that they keep going back to.
Yeah.
And then they've got the police station.
Hang on, the steel mill really bothered me because so when Lewis rescues Murphy after he's been a fugitive, she takes him to the steel mill, which is the source
the
of
place
his
where
death.
yeah.
Why would she bring him there?
Because he's
the
a
most traumatic
Robocop.
place.
Hold on, you forgot a petrol station.
Oh, on the petrol station.
Yeah, no, big budget stuff.
Oh, and there was a street where they exploded loads of cars.
I'm pretty sure that was across the road from the petrol station.
I would give it a 4.
backdrop.
I think 4 because it's fine on a small screen.
Oh, Dave, you didn't say what your score was going to be.
I'm going to give it a 5 because it probably is best viewed on a small screen. I'm sweeping the board here.
Yeah, 5s all around so far.
Dave, I think you're probably giving too high scores to this movie.
Hey, I'm scoring.
Because you
From,
watched it last night on your own.
I'm shooting from the hip, but I'm also like twirling my gun around.
Daddy, can you do that?
Can anyone name the name of that show?
Oh, it's something like TJ Walker.
TJ Laser.
And moving on from TJ Laser, engagement, Kobe. What's your
Engagement
score?
score. Look, 4.5. Again, I think I was really enjoying this rewatch. Trying to see where the seams fell apart, and it didn't really. For the most part, it held up. So I really enjoyed it. 4.5. Yeah.
Wow, big score. Helen?
A little bit lower. I'm going to go for a 3 on this one.
It's a fair bit lower.
I mean, I could kind of see where this was going a little bit.
Sure.
I don't think it.
Did you foresee the toxic waste smashed up by a car?
Yeah, exactly. Because I'd seen it in Fangoria and knew it was going to happen.
That's the best bit.
It's
very incidental, that bit.
It is, but
it's just like it's got nothing to do with anything.
Mindless
They're just like,
thought.
what if this happened?
But it's still like indelibly printed on my memory, that one thing of like him trying to. Wasn't that Ray? Wasn't that Palmer from Twin Peaks? Walk.
Yeah, so Ray Wise, he was walking towards him, and he's like, "Get away from me!" But the toxic guy, is Paul McCrane, who was in ER as Dr. Robert Romano.
Really?
So I know him as that, and he's been in other things as well.
Good.
So.
I'm glad that he's got more work out there.
And also,
it's
for anyone who
amazing
doesn't know, Helen has rewatched all of ER twice, so she will know anyone who's been in ER, even if it's a cameo.
Yeah.
Dave?
Am I next?
Engagement.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give it a 5. I almost got a full sweep. I'm not.
You've gone too far.
It's not.
Like when you watched it last night,
It's not
I
a
bet
perfect
you were on your
movie.
phone and doing other stuff.
I may have written a couple of tweets. Yeah, it definitely dips at a few points. It's not far from a perfect movie. It's no Total Recall. So I'm going to give it a 4.
4 is really high.
3.
That's really high.
Yeah, but I was pretty engaged. I had an absolute blast watching this.
We need one more. Cathy, your score?
I'll give it a 3. It's the kind of movie I'd like do the laundry while I'm watching.
It's a good laundry movie, actually.
Yeah.
That's a good shout.
I remember watching Die Hard 4.0 whilst doing my ironing one night, one day. And I was like, yeah, this is awesome. But then thinking about it, it's like, this is actually quite a shit film.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
very good.
Total score of 3.875.
Oh, nowhere near the top.
No, but
How
I
does
think
that
still pretty
sit
good.
in the Flixwatcher?
that'll be
Well, yeah,
upper
we say,
half.
I mean, anything over 3 is generally quite good.
That's a decent
all
score.
right.
Yeah.
I think generally quite good is a
Yeah.
nice description
Yeah.
for Robocop.
I mean, I was surprised. I thought it was going to be.
You thought it was going to be terrible.
I thought it was going to be a little bit painful, but I quite enjoyed it.
All right. So as always, we asked you, our listeners, to write us your reviews and score Robocop out of 5. On Twitter, Top Film Tip wrote, "Killed cop cyborg seeks bullet-bathed vengeance in penis-shooting, toxic waste mutilating, visceral dystopian catharsis." Wow, that's just a beautiful review. The original Judge Dredd movie. There you go, Helen. Verhoeven and Weller at their best, and they've given it 5 guns and 5 aubergine emojis out of 10 total guns / aubergines.
That's amazing.
So it's 5 out of 5, but Top Film Tip likes to get elaborate with the emojis. So I think,
I think that's 5 guns to the gentleman parts.
Yeah, that's
5
brilliant.
guns out of 5
I love
PI.
what you've done there. Then we have What Were They Thinking podcast. They've given it 4 stars. Awesome action movie with some great societal critique and that trademark Verhoeven touch.
And then Retro Rumble blog, a defining film of the 80s and arguably Verhoeven's best.
Ooh.
Biting satire and extreme violence. What's not to love? 5. What is that?
Police cars.
Police
car.
cars. Nice. Customers also watched, seen too many times to count, love it, own multiple DVD versions, wow, and Blu-ray. Love it so much I rented a private theatre to watch with friends for my husband's 40th birthday. Robocop is a perfect movie. Also anxiously waiting for the @Robocop doc.
Yes.
Oh, I
To
would
be
like-
fair, that would be really funny to rent a theatre out, like fun, and
Yeah.
watch that with a group of friends. I'd be into that. And then Flixwatcher replied, "But how many stars?" And customers also watched 5. I mean, I think you could have guessed that one. And finally, Dave, we have Danny.
Danny gave it 4 stars because of this memory. And this is Danny speaking, not me. "I lived down the street from a 1-screen theatre when this came out. Walked over alone, spent my allowance on a ticket and watched him get blown to bits in the opening moments and later on the acid vat scene. Oh, small detail, I was 7 years old." That's 2 years younger than you, Kobi.
It was. And it's only because obviously, it came out 1987 in America, which means like maybe 1988 in the UK, and then like time to process on VHS. So back in the 80s when you had to wait for shit.
Yeah.
There was
So
no,
you were lucky you weren't scarred at 7.
yeah.
Wow.
How can you walk into a theatre when you're 7 years old and buy a ticket for
It's
something?
the 80s. You could do what you wanted.
I assumed this guy was in the States or not in the UK.
Or maybe he did the classic move where you buy a ticket for one movie and then you go into the different
Cheeky.
screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
One
Anyway,
ticket
thanks
to
everyone for all the
Speaking for a
reviews.
friend.
Yeah.
Great response.
Well,
And thanks, Kobi and Helen,
Yeah.
for coming
Thank
on our
you.
podcast.
thank you. Well, thank
you.
Yeah. Thank you for hosting, guys. It's been a pleasure. And thank you so much for also being the
one of the first.
guest to come on without knowing who we were or what we were doing. So bringing on Manhattan and Ark, and coming to a place in Camden where you didn't know what was going to happen to you.
Yeah, I remember we were on our
It was
way.
terrifying.
'Cause it was years ago, and we were like, "What is this? Where are we going?" And then we're like, "We'll just go anyway. It'd be fun." And it was really fun. And I think Dave picked Ark because it had just been released on Netflix, and then I picked Manhattan because
That film really is.
it was just on
stood the
Netflix,
test
and I
of
thought,
time.
why not? Not knowing that Helen is a massive Woody Allen buff, and as soon as I realised that, we were completely mortified because we weren't. And we'd really interesting conversations around Manhattan, actually. So people should go back and listen. It was an interesting one. And Ark was just funny. Ark was kind of in the Robocop vein, I guess. But yeah, 100
Hang
episodes,
on.
guys. What about 200 episodes? What are you going to do?
Piece of shit.
200 episodes, we'll hire out the top floor of Empire State.
Yeah,
Okay.
nice. I think you should hire at a movie theater and we all watch Robocop.
Yeah, we
And
might.
I
Ark.
love that.
Yeah.
Back to back.
That sounds... Robocop Ark. Oh my God. We filled for Robocop, empty out for Ark. Where's the toilet?
So 200th episode, we'll be back in our living room
Yeah.
recording. I've invited us on as hosts.
I like it.
Our glamorous living room.
Yeah, and so everyone
With the
should go.
fountain.
Where should everyone go to find you guys on social media?
So we are at Flixwatcher Pod on Twitter and at Flixwatcher generally elsewhere. And where are you guys?
We're
We're right here in our living room.
Yeah.
room. We are at the Cinemile on anywhere you listen to podcasts and Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. So come have a listen.
Thank you so much
thanks
for
for
guest
hosting
hosting.
us.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Pleasure.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Bye.
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 Thank you, as always, for listening to this episode. Don't forget to hit subscribe wherever you find your podcasts. Leave us your 5-star review on iTunes and follow us at FlixWatcherPod on Twitter.
Thanks a lot to Brendan for your sublime editing skills. Really appreciate it. Thank you also to the mighty people who kindly gave us the tunes that you can listen to, that you're listening to right now.